Paranormal Overtones.
Hello and welcome to Paranormal Overtones Shorts. Today we aren't in the Northwest or even North Wales. At the suggestion of our Threads connection, Weird Knitting, we're taking a trip down to the south coast, specifically Hampshire, to take a look at the grand country house of Hinton Ampner, which lies between New Cheriton and Bramdean. Hinton Ampner is a house of many faces, or to be more precise, a house of many facades. Now most famous for its neo-Georgian appearance and renowned gardens, both of which were the brainchild of Ralph Dutton, the last Lord Sherborne, Hinton Ampner has previously had a Victorian look, a Georgian visage, and the original house, which was 50 metres away, was of Tudor construction, having been built in the 1540s. It's this iteration of the house which provides us our story. By the end of the 16th century, the house was in the possession of the Stukely family. In the early 1700s, Lord Edward Stowell married into the Stukely family, marrying Mary, a woman 10 years his senior. In 1740, Mary died and Edward decided to shack up with her much younger sister, Honoria. The local grapevine swirled with rumours that they had a child together, though the infant mysteriously disappeared soon after birth. Over the next decade, Edward garnered a reputation within the parish as a notorious evildoer, and then, 14 years after her sister, Honoria also passed away. Local gossip said her death was retribution for the wicked and debauched goings-on which she had been both witness and privy to. A year later, Edward himself died from a sudden fit of apoplexy in the parlour of the Tudor mansion. For the next decade, locals attempted to avoid the house, mindful of the spectre of a man dressed in a drab-coloured coat, standing in the moonlight with his hands clasped behind him, much in the same manner favoured by the late Lord Stowell. Servants left in the dead of the night, and a handful of tenants came and went after short periods of time. In 1764, a Mr. and Mrs. Ricketts of London moved in, bringing their 8 servants with them. Noting the strange happenings, they continued their attempts to make Hinton Ampner a respectable family home. In spite of their attempts, the supernatural happenings increased in both number and severity. Doors were slammed violently in the depths of the night, and agitated footsteps could be heard pacing in unoccupied rooms. Convinced that the villagers had acquired spare keys in an attempt to scare the family away, Mr. Ricketts changed all of the locks in the house, though his attempt at securing both the home and a good night's sleep were ultimately in vain. The happenings continued, and the Ricketts came to accept that they were living in a haunted house. The ghostly goings-on continued until in 1769 or 1770, Mr. Ricketts was called away to his estates in Jamaica. Mrs. Ricketts and the children were now alone in their haunted home, and things were about to be turned up to 11. Away from the slamming doors and pacing footsteps, new noises and sensations began. Mrs. Ricketts described hearing the rustle of an invisible woman's skirts, the sound of heavy male footsteps approaching her bed, the sound of a shrill female voice, punctuated by 2 deep male voices. The conversation of this disembodied trio was always nearby, but never close enough or loud enough to comprehend what was being said. Then one night Mrs. Ricketts was awoken by what she stated was a most deep, tremendous noise, as if something was falling with great velocity and force in the room which adjoined hers. This was followed by 3 dreadful shrieks that grew fainter and fainter as they appeared to sink through the floor. Docking in Portsmouth, Captain John Jervis, later Admiral Lord St. Vincent of the Royal Navy, was made aware of his sister's plight. Enlisting the help of his friend Captain Luttrell, the seafarers set course for Hinton Ampner in the hopes of getting to the bottom of what exactly was going on. Arriving at the house, the 2 friends investigated every room, nook and cranny to eliminate foul play. As night fell, they began their watch with pistols drawn and loaded. Not too long into the night, Captain Jervis heard the sounds of dreadful groans and felt something flit by him. The sounds continued and seemed to be emanating from the floor above the 2 men. They began a top-to-bottom search of the house, but discovered nothing. The next day, the captain deemed that the house was unfit for any human being, and the Ricketts family moved out shortly thereafter. A little while passed, and the tenancy was taken up by a Mr. Lawrence. Not much is said about his time there, but it is noted that he suddenly and inexplicably left his occupation of the house, and it was subsequently left empty until 1797, whereupon, being unfit for habitation, it was pulled down by the latest Lord Stowell with the intention to build the first version of the house which stands there today. During the demolition process, it was cited that a small pile of bones was found, including a small skull. Local rumours were rife that these were the remains of the disappearing child, though centuries later Ralph Dutton mentioned the find as a monkey skull in his memoirs. But what caused the disturbances and the subsequent abandonment of this large Hampshire house? Could it be the restless spirits of the Stukelys or Stowells? Of Lord Edward, hands clasped tightly behind his back, pacing the rooms? The restless spirit of a child, or potentially a monkey, buried beneath the floorboards? Or could it be that the locals did indeed manage to infiltrate the house at night? John Duthie, a local artist and author in the 19th century, spoke of private passageways and stairs within the walls of Hinton Ampner. Supernatural spookery or super sneaky servants? We'll let you decide. If you've got a haunting you want us to cover, or you want to describe your own experiences at length, don't hesitate to contact us on social media or drop us an email, paranormalovertones@gmail.com. For now though, I've been Mike Lamb, this has been Paranormal Overtones Shorts. Thank you for listening.
Paranormal Overtones.